Kia ora koutou, and welcome to the latest episode of the Business Spotlight podcast. I'm Darryn Gray from Darryn Gray Consulting, and in conjunction with the Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce, we are proud to bring you this podcast series. It's aimed at shining a spotlight on the incredible businesses within our Hutt Valley community. Now, in each episode, we've been chatting to one local Hutt Valley business, uncovering their unique stories, their innovative practices, and the invaluable contributions they make to our region. Now, we try and do the podcast unedited so we can get to meet the real people behind the business and have real conversation, albeit in a short time frame. So if you hear or see the odd mistake, just go with it and enjoy. Now, today we're doing something really different. We're going to be taking a little break for a while. So today the podcast guest is me, and the interviewer is going to be Patrick McKibbin, CEO of the Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce. So I'd encourage you to sit back and relax and see if, like all my guests did so well, I can actually explain what I do. So Patrick, welcome. It's great hanging out with you for a few minutes. It's all yours. Do you want to do a bit of an intro before we get going?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Darryn. That's as you say, there are so many amazing businesses here in the Hutt Valley, and so we'll definitely look forward to this series kickstarting again when it's ready. But hi, I'm Patrick McKibbin. I'm the CEO here at the Chamber of Commerce, and I often describe my job as the best job in the Hutt Valley. I'm sure lots of people would say that, but actually I get to meet a lot of really great people. I get to go and see a whole bunch of really great businesses. And so my happy place is being out and about, seeing those businesses and meeting those people, and it's a really awesome job. So yeah, let's get into it, Darryn.
That's good.
It will be. We're turning it on the tables a little bit here on you. So you've been used to asking the questions, but let's turn those tables and let's get into it. So first question really is, Darryn, as you describe yourself as a learning designer, a facilitator, a coach, and a community builder. But what does all of that mean, and which one of those are you on a daily basis?
That's a good question, because it's a bit like sometimes when you kind of try and explain what I do to people and you're at a barbecue, it's a bit like saying that you work for the tax department sometimes. But it is an interesting conversation. I think the best way to answer it is, so you know, when a business has got a goal, so all of our businesses, whether they're private, whether they're NGOs, organizations, public sector organizations, they all got something they need to do, and they may have the best processes, the best systems in place, but they're not quite getting to where they need to be. They're not quite achieving what they need to be. So what somebody with my skill set does, whether it's in the learning design, the facilitating, or the coaching space does, is I come alongside them and go, okay, so maybe we need to look at the people bit. What are the people doing? And are the people doing the right things that they need to be doing to be able to get the team they're working in or the business performing at its optimum level? Because we all know if the people are doing their stuff really well, then the business will perform well. So it's about aligning the people stuff with the business stuff. So a big part of the work I do comes under the umbrella of performance consulting. Now, performance consulting, sorry. And I know that sounds a bit highfalutin, but it's really just making sure that other people doing what they need to do to make sure that the business or the organization is performing at its optimum level. And it's a really, really fun space to work. I'm just lucky that over the years, I'm able to do that now in terms of helping an organization identify learning, designing the learning, helping facilitate stuff, or apply my skills as a coach, whether that's at a one-to-one, a team coaching level, or a group coaching level. So yeah, it's kind of like, how does that sound? Did I do okay?
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of fun. It's I'm beginning to think that maybe I haven't got the best job in the Hutt Valley, but hey,
oh no, you got a pretty good job.
So what is it that you help people with most with? Sounds like you're doing a lot there, but what's the thing that you would say you help people most with?
Oh, that's a great question, and I think it's around it's probably around making learning stick. So I think, you know, I guess I can think of times, I'm sure you can think of times where you've gone off to a course, and it was a really good course. So you've gone off and done some learning, and you come back, and for whatever reason, we don't get around to putting that learning into practice. So what I help people, and I think the organizations do, is think through, once we've identified what it is that people need to do differently, is what are the things that we need to do to make that learning stick and actually get transfer of that learning into practice. Because at the end of the day, it's either about somebody learning something new to do a new component of their job, or it's about them learning something different, and that requires somebody to change. And so sometimes we do the learning, but we don't go into that space of going, but what support will a person need to actually change their practice or do that new thing? And so I think that's what I really help people and businesses with, is they work out what do they need to know, how do they need to be, and then what is it that they actually need to do. So it's really kind of working through that process to make sure that whatever the people are doing then are aligned to where the business or the organization needs to get to.
So, I mean, it's certainly true that I've been to, I wouldn't say many courses, but certainly been to courses where you come away inspired by the content, and then you find you don't necessarily put that into practice. But so if you're helping people kind of put it into practice, that's absolutely brilliant. What about, so flipping that on its head though, what's a misconception about what you do? What would people kind of find that they might not understand about what you do? What's the common misconception about your work?
Oh, there's probably quite a few of them, but I think that one of the misconceptions is it's you're the trainer or you're the dude who will just take these slides, make them look really nice, add a whole pile of fun activities, and then you've got some great learning. And I think that's one of the misconceptions, is that we've all been to school and we've all experienced learning, and then by default, a lot of people know about learning. But I think what the biggest misconception is that then to do really effective learning design, you really need to dig deep into what makes great learning. What's the theory behind learning? What's the neuroscience behind learning? How do we actually get people learning stuff in a way, like we were talking about before, that it's going to stick? And it's more, as much as I like some of the shiny bells and whistles and the shiny tools and things you can use, it's really more than that. It's designing a really good learning experience. The other thing, Patrick, that I want to slot in there is that it's not just about the learning stuff. Sometimes a good learning designer, a facilitator, or coach knows about behavioral science. So they know about how do you get people doing things differently, because when you're expecting people to change, as we were talking about before, there's a level of science that supports that. So a good learning designer will know a lot of behavioral science. They're also pretty good in terms of change management and project management, because you have to work in the space that I work. You're working with a massive range of stakeholders sometimes. So one minute you might be working with the leadership of an organization where you're working out what's the strategic change that needs to take place, and then what do people need to do. And then the next conversation, you're working with the learners themselves to go, well, how do we design this learning for you in a way that's going to work for you? And what do you think? And what are your ideas? So there's a whole skill set that I think goes in there that's more than just a learning designer just does training and stands at the front and works through a whole lot of slides, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what about though, I'm going to throw in a slightly curly question here, I think, but what about the people on the other end? So for me, for example, going to a course, or actually, if I think back to learning at school, not everything stuck, to be honest. What would you say to me to help me to kind of think, for things to stick? What is it that some of the tricks and tips for somebody like me that might want to help more of that information get retained in my slightly small brain?
Look, I appreciate the question. I think what I would come back with was a key question there is, what are you curious about and what do you need to know to be able to do what you need to do better? And I think it's positioning back that, and it's possibly one of the differences in terms of in a previous life, like I was a teacher, so did a lot of learning for design for kids in the classroom. And I think the biggest difference when you're working with adults is actually you've got to go there with the adults and go, well, what is it that you're curious about? What is it that you need to learn? Now, how can I work through the skill set that I've got to design that in a way that is going to help the learning stick for you?
Awesome. So knowing your audience is really key.
Absolutely.
Then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. So, I mean, look, I get the sense that you love what you're doing, but what really what really excites you, floats your boat? What is it that you do on a daily basis that, gets you out of bed, I guess?
Oh, yeah, good question, especially on these cold days. You know what? It's the aha moments. There's nothing more when you're working in the learning space or coaching space, any of the spaces that I work in, where you see somebody just have that aha moment, or they're sitting there and go, oh, I get it, the penny drops. I think when you've seen somebody get something new, when you've seen somebody really struggle to learn something new, and then all of a sudden they get it, I think that's what's the exciting bit. When you see those light bulbs come on, you know that you've just, I don't know, sometimes dropped the right conversation, the right question at the right place, you've done the right activity, whatever it is you've done as a facilitator, and they just go ping, I get it. I think that's the exciting bit, seeing people do things differently and things that they couldn't do before, or work through some kind of a barrier.
Yeah, making a difference. That's what it's all about.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So we're gonna move on to kind of business now, and you're running a small business. There's hundreds of thousands of small businesses in New Zealand. What are some of the challenges you face as a small business right now, and maybe in particular reference to the current economy?
Oh, that's a good question. Gosh, it's on my mind a lot at the moment, and it's been really interesting. If we look back through some of the other podcasts that we've done, seeing different people's response to this, I think for me, there's a couple of things on my mind. It's the juggle. As a person who's so I'm solopreneur, work for myself. There's only me. Well, there's Bear the Cavoodle. He gives a hand when he can. But it's how do you keep the balance between working on the business and in the business, and particularly while you're trying to navigate current economic times, which for the small businesses, it's pretty tough out there. And particularly when you've had like me, I had predominantly a contracting consulting base. Well, that's kind of gone. That's dried up at the moment. So you're having to pivot, which means that you're having to network at a rate of knots. So you need time to do that, but at the same time, you need time to deliver some stuff and develop some stuff. So I think there's that tension there. I think the other thing at the moment, Patrick, is that we are just in such fast-moving times at the moment. And I've been hearing it a lot from quite a few people that I work with in the spaces that I operate in, that overwhelm at the moment, that overwhelm in terms of the growth of the tech that we've got at the moment, the growth of AI, how 1 month you think you've kind of got your head around it, and then all of a sudden, we open up our chat GPT things and we find version 5 is suddenly in front of our eyes, and we're going, okay, now what does that mean for us? And how do I keep up with it? How do I keep across what I need to keep up with so that I can be effective in the work that I'm doing? So I think there's those things playing out at the moment in terms of how do you keep up? How do you keep sharp? What's your point of difference? But also, how do you make time for yourself, that if you are feeling the pressures to kind of, between the working on the business and working in the business, the feeling of there's a lot going on, you've got to still make some time to take some time out. I'm learning about that. I really am. That's probably the biggest challenge, is how do every now and again do you stop and press pause and go, I need to do something differently to recharge the batteries.
Yeah.
That's the hardest bit, eh?
That's great advice, and that balance and pausing is super important for everybody, I think. So, all right. So this is looking back at you're very young and had a very short career, but if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, and thank you for the compliment. It must be my moisturizer that I use. Look, I think back yourself sooner. And I think when we did the very first one of these with Tony McKibbin, he said something very, very similar. Is back yourself sooner. Don't wait until it's perfect. Scope out what you need to scope. Do some testing, and then give it a go. Put out the idea and test it. We've all got that little inner critic, hey, that sits on our shoulder and will tell us multiple times, oh, it's not a good idea, it's not a great idea, it might not work. But sometimes I think actually just trying to take that little bit of a courage and give it a go. You never know what will happen as a result of that. You never know what will come from having that idea and putting it out there and trying. Certainly, thinking about contracting and consulting, I thought about that for years. And when I unpacked what the barriers were around it, it was little stuff that was getting in the way. And once you kind of had a conversation with a few people like yourself, talking to accountants, things like that, and going, well, what's the barrier here? What's getting in the way? And are they big things or little things? Sometimes by just having the right conversation with the right person, those little things can disappear, and actually you can give it a go. So yeah, back yourself sooner. Back yourself to win.
Great advice. Tell us about, just bringing all of that together, I guess. Tell us about a project that you're super proud of and that you've worked on recently.
Oh, look, one of the things that I get buzzed out about is it's a free community that I founded just about a year ago, just over a year ago. And it came out of the, we were talking about the economical climate before. It came out of the fact that at the beginning of last year, when the public service restructures began, research shows worldwide that when that sort of activity is going on, learning teams take a hit. Learning is seen as a nice to have, not necessarily a need to have. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could establish a bit of a group that could network together learning and development professionals a little bit better than we are currently? And what if we could do that across New Zealand and Australia and see what kind of conversation could we get going around learning and development? What kind of network could we build, and what kind of supportive community could we build? I honestly thought, Patrick, when I put the idea out there, after I did a little bit about what we were talking about before, a little bit of procrastination, as you do, when I eventually got around to putting it out there, I thought, look, we might get 40 or 50 people take part in this community. As of last time I looked, there's about 580 something. So just under 600 people now in a community of practice, basically, is what it is, where we're having webinars. We're talking about what we do. We run webinars, we run activities. We're running a cultural capability series at the moment. We run coffee catch-ups across both countries where practitioners just to get together over virtual coffee and talk about what they're doing. Whole bunch of stuff. It's all completely free, and it's a real buzz. It's been a buzz to see it grow, and it's a good example of would I have, if that little time travel thing, would I have done that 3 or 4 years ago? I wouldn't have backed myself, but I did back myself, and I gave it a go, and it's great fun.
Awesome. Well done. Something dear to my heart is the Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce, as you know. And you joined the chamber probably 18 months ago, although I think you were still work consulting at that time. And so you were obviously kind of already in that planning phase for the future. But what and you talked earlier about networking, the power of networking, but how have you found being a member of the chamber, and what benefits has it brought to you?
I've loved it. Absolutely loved it. I think the team that you have there are amazing. So we have to do a shout out to the team. I was going to do it in the wrap out, but what you and the team are doing for the Lower Hutt community is nothing short of amazing. And I know the team work incredibly hard. So being able to connect in with what you're doing, get an understanding of what's happening in the Hutt Valley itself in terms of all the opportunities and the growth in the industry and stuff is out here is just phenomenal. But I think as you mentioned, the networking, the people that I've met in the last 18 months by turning up to some of the events, both the networking events, the learning events that the chamber runs, have just been amazing. Hey, I wouldn't have done this if I hadn't turned up to the chamber. When you and I had a bit of an idea one day and we said, hey, what about doing something like this? Have you ever done a podcast before? And I said, well, no, but let's give it a go and see how it goes. So, incredibly supportive in doing things like this and encouraging innovation and stuff like that. So I would just encourage anybody that sees this, if you're not a chamber member, just do it. It's a great group to belong to. And that's not a sales pitch. That's honestly speaking from heart.
Oh, well, and I was just about to launch into the sales pitch, and it's only from $25 a month for GFT. And I really appreciate you saying all those kind words. I have got an amazing team, and they do work really hard for the business community here. So that's awesome to hear. Hey, so we're nearly there. You do an amazing job. You've got, you've created something very special in the learning and development kind of circle. How do people get hold of you, Darryn, if they want to talk to you, engage with you, get you to do some work for them? How do they get hold of you? Nice, thank you. Well, I have a website now. So it's www.darryngray.co.nz. So it's easier to remember. It's just the name with the www and the co.nz on the back of it. So they can go there, and it's got a bit of a spiel there about the things that I do. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just look up Darryn Gray, and I'm on LinkedIn, pretty active on there at the moment. They can also search for the Kraken L&D Down Under learning community, and can find me through that. So yeah, website and LinkedIn, I think, are the best places to find me, Patrick. Or unless I'm down there hanging out with you guys at one of your awesome events. Yeah. I was going to say, you're the best place to find you is here at the Chamber at one of our fantastic events. So absolutely. Hey, look, it's been awesome to catch up. I don't know whether you want to say any final words before we finish. I will. And thank you for playing the role of me while I played the role of being interviewed. That was kind of fun, but thank you. Look, that brings us to the end of this month's Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce Business Spotlight podcast and the end of the current series. It's been a pleasure creating these podcasts, and we really hope that you have enjoyed the series. If you want to find out more about what I do, like we were talking about before, www.darryngray.co.nz, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Patrick, Megan, Casey, and the team, thank you for supporting this wee podcast over the last 12 months. Super enjoyed working with you and doing this, and I've done a lot of learning. You've been listening to the Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce Business Spotlight podcast. Thanks for joining us, and remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Chamber's streaming channels for more fascinating insights. I'm your host, Darryn Gray from Darryn Gray Consulting, your local Hutt Valley learning designer, facilitator, and ICF credentialed coach. And I've had a ball talking with Patrick today, the CEO from the Chamber. Patrick, thank you so much. Thanks, Darryn. Have a great day.